up, Switches?
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Cicero.
And this is the Switching Lanes podcast.
Today's topic, blaming the victim.
Cicero, I really wanted to address this particular topic this week, especially since the last two episodes we covered were dedicated to domestic violence. And I feel like this topic relates as well to domestic violence and other crimes.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of times when the women or men, I would say mainly the women because it's mostly reported amongst the women, or from women, a lot of women stay in that situation because they're afraid of the judgment that comes along with someone knowing that they're in that issue, they're having that issue, and a bunch of that judgment is victim blaming.
Right.
Why didn't you leave? Or why won't you leave? You just weak. Or what did you do? You know, he hit me in my eye. What did you do?
What did you do to provoke him? Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely relatable to that situation, and it's interesting because when I was preparing to discuss this, I was reading and did a little research myself, and William Ryan, psychologist, he's a world-renowned psychologist. He coined the phrase "blaming the victim," and that's actually the title of his first book that was published in 1971. And he wrote the book as a rebuttal to the Moynihan report that placed most of the blame in the African American community on. He placed the blame for poverty rates in our community on the rise of single parent households rather than the racism and discrimination that our people experience, and that of course would have been the biggest issue, and that discrimination, that racism led to those broken homes, led to some of the situations that were more volatile for our people. So I thought it was pretty interesting that that's where that phrase was coined. I mean, that's right. Completely on a whole different wavelength of how it's used now, in terms of, domestic violence victims, right, or rape victims.
Or even rape victims, right.
Or victims of any crime, period. I mean, I was robbed last night. Well, why were you out so late?
Right. Why were you out so late? Or why did you have your wallet in your back pocket instead of your front pocket, after someone snatched your wallet? Or
why was your purse open? Why was your purse on your seat? Why was, and now granted, I mean, don't get me wrong. You go to the gas station, you get out your car, lock your door.
Right. Please and thank you.
Yeah, lock your door.
Please.
Let's be real. Lock your door. Don't just say I'm going to leave my door unlocked and my windows down because, I mean, you're just not supposed to commit crime anyway.
Right.
Granted, you're not, but you do want to be vigilant. But you have these situations, like I said, the biggest thing is with rape victims and victims of violent crimes that, again, the being abused. Well, what did you do?
Right.
Being raped. What did you wear?
What were you wearing? How much did you drink?
Yeah. I mean, like, what message did you send him? Like, did you let him know? Did you tell him no? Did you say no? Did you verbalize no? I mean, he got the idea that this is what you wanted to do. So, I mean, you probably shouldn't have been in his house anyway.
Well, a part of it that just really burns me up with that is when they ask the victim, how well did you know him? Have you ever been in a relationship with him? Are you in a relationship with him now? Right. You've heard me say this in a past episode, and I'm going to reiterate this for you. I don't care if you're in a relationship with him or not.
Right.
The moment you said stop, the moment you said no, the moment you said I don't want to,
absolutely,
that was his stopping point. He should have stopped whatever was happening. He or she,
and anything past
a female can be an aggressor.
Anything past that, you're in violation.
Absolutely.
Period.
You can be married.
Right.
I think I said that on the last episode. You can be married, and if you tell that man stop, he has committed a crime.
I know someone that happened to. She was with a guy, and she they were in a volatile relationship, and it was coming to an end, and things had to be worked out for one to move out and the other and all that, and he would literally intimidate her, and he did rape her. He did, rape her at some point, and of course, in his mind, that's not rape because we're in a relationship. But this relationship is falling apart, and she's at this point don't want to be intimate anymore.
Right.
But you decide you still want to take it because that's a control issue for you. You want to control that person. So you can't blame the victim for somebody else's behavior.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, again, that sends people into their own shells. That's why so many rapes aren't reported.
Mm-hmm. They're afraid. They're ashamed.
Yeah.
It's not just the embarrassment. It's having to deal with the public scrutiny.
Yeah.
You know, you have all these people chastising you over something you had no control over, and they feel like you should have had more control over it.
And it's that fear of judgment. Because victim blaming is simply judgment. It's that fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. And in their minds, they've already programmed their own thoughts that maybe this is my fault. Mm-hmm. Because they know this is what they're going to hear anyway. Mm-hmm. So in their minds, they're asking the question, is it my fault? Like they're already asking that question before somebody says it.
Mm-hmm. You have them second guessing themselves, even though they knew originally they didn't do anything wrong. So I mean, I've heard situations, Cicero. I've had females explaining what happened in their situation, and one woman said that they were in the middle of having sex, mm-hmm. and he began getting too rough, and so she was trying to get him to stop because now I don't like it anymore, and she felt like nobody was going to believe me because we were already in the act of.
Right.
That doesn't matter. Right. You said stopped. He should have stopped.
Right. I mean, and that's when self-control comes in.
Right.
Because if she says stop, regardless of how you're feeling,
right,
you got to stop.
Right. And during my research, I was reading an article titled Blaming the Victim. And a psychologist, Sherry Hamby, said holding victims responsible for their misfortune is partially a way to avoid admitting that something just as unthinkable could happen to you, even if you do everything right.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is,
and that's heavy.
It is, because it lets us know that a lot of people refuse to believe, well, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, nothing negative should happen to me. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. They just refuse to believe that anything can go wrong because they took all the right steps.
And it makes so much sense, because how many times have you heard a woman say, he's beating on her. Ooh, that couldn't be me.
Mm-hmm. So many times. And you never know until you have those shoes on,
baby. If that
baby.
were me, I would do A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you never know. Like, I've learned that lesson of putting my foot in my mouth. Mm-hmm. I don't say what I wouldn't do because I don't know. I mean, it's ideal to think that you fight back or you walk away immediately.
Right.
It's very much ideal.
Or that it's only going to happen one time and you getting out of that house. It's never going to happen again. I'm not going to tolerate this.
Yes.
That's what you want to believe, because you believe in yourself that you are a strong person. But you're human.
Right.
And that human factor is a wild card. Like, really. Right. It can go either way, especially when you have emotional connections to this person. Oh, he apologized, and he said he'll never do it again, and he loves me.
Right.
Okay, but that's not what love looks like.
You know, another way of looking at the victim blaming. I was reading an article, and it said the victim blame often stems from a desire to see the world as a just and fair place where people get what they deserve.
Right.
So how many times have you heard somebody say, oh, that was just karma?
Mm-hmm. That's major right there. It's major.
That was just karma.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he got what he deserved. Did he?
Did he?
I mean, are we in a position to be able to say that?
Right.
I mean, it's like, okay, let's say the guy that killed my mom. I don't personally believe in the death penalty, and I've said that before. That's just my personal belief.
Right.
But, of course, you have people who would feel that if he killed my mom, if he killed my brother, if he killed my sister, he deserved to be killed too. Then in turn, you just made him a victim. Even though you don't want to look at it like that because he's the violator.
Absolutely.
But me personally, I don't feel that way because I don't feel like we have that right.
Because now you have that person's blood on your hands.
Right. I feel like that's not within our control. That's not our right. Just like it wasn't his right to take a life either, but he's suffering his punishment.
Right.
He's getting his punishment. The justice system did what they were supposed to do.
It's hard to blame everything on karma when all victims aren't adults. You know what I'm saying? There are children
Absolutely.
who are victims. So where is the karma in that? What have they done to deserve whatever it is taking place? There are children who have been snatched walking home. what was her crime? What karma is in play at that moment? If she took all the right steps, she was walking where she was supposed to be walking.
Right.
She's leaving from school, walking straight home.
Right.
She didn't take any detour. So, where is the karma in that? She took all the right steps, right?
Right.
So,
well, in that case, I think in cases like that, the parent is the victim, and you shouldn't let her walk home by herself.
And there you go. That's the first thing. Well, why was she walking by herself? Why didn't her mama pick her up? Why didn't her daddy pick her up? Why didn't somebody else set up da-da-da-da-da? You can come up with a million reasons why the victim was to blame, or the victim's family was to blame. You'll find somebody to blame, as opposed to saying the person that did wrong was wrong. How simple is that?
Flat out.
How simple is it to leave the blame where it belongs?
Right.
And that's with the perpetrator who did the crime in the first place.
Right.
Instead of asking me how long my skirt was, instead of asking me how much I had to drink.
Right.
What did you do to A perfect example is the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
In that movie, she's married to a guy who is abusing her.
A real jerk.
And she finally works up to the nerve and decided to tell his mother. And she shows up for a lunch and takes off her shades, and the mother sees the bruises in her face. And the mother's question was, what did you do?
Yeah.
That's the perfect example, because that's exactly what we do in our society. When we see a victim, our first question is against the victim.
Mm-hmm. Especially one of abuse.
Right. And think about how much they're already going through. You know what I'm saying? You're already dealing with so much from whatever the crime was, whether it's domestic violence, assault, whether it's sexual violence. Maybe somebody broke in your house, and your question is, well, did you lock all your doors? Did you double check the windows before you left? Do you do all that stuff before you leave your house? Check all the doors and windows? Whatever the crime was that was committed, we're so quick to lay blame on the victims, and you just really putting them through so much extra crap.
Right.
That's a terribly sad thing. It really is. And we really have to work harder at being more, more empathetic. That's a great word. That's what we need.
Empathetic. I mean, just have some empathy. Just stop for a minute and stop trying to issue your own version of what you think justice is.
Right.
Stop trying to play detective. And allow that person their time to process. Because they're still processing.
Absolutely.
They're still processing.
They are.
And you're only adding insult to injury.
Right.
When you ask what you think may be a seemingly innocent question.
Right. So you're just pushing the dagger in even further.
Right.
Than it had to be, because they already went through enough. Compassion. That's the word I was looking for. We need more compassion with one another.
Absolutely.
We really do.
It's just like with the rape victims. In the situation with rape victims. You have to think about, they're already re-victimized as they go through the investigation process.
Absolutely.
They're already being questioned by detectives.
Over and over.
In their minds, they're being groped by medical professionals. Because they have to do these rape kits.
Right.
And they have to examine them, and they have to take photos of them. So, you come out of a room where you've been questioned, go into another room where you're, in your mind, because you've already been violated, you're being groped again.
Again. By another stranger. Because I've never had this to happen to me, but, and Lord forbid it ever happens, I can only imagine having your clothes ripped off of you, and then being put in a room where they say, take your clothes off. Right.
Around a bunch of people you don't know.
And you haven't even healed from what just happened to you.
Right. With people that you don't know.
People you don't know. And now you need to get naked for these people.
That you don't know. And they have cameras.
Right. And they're taking photos.
They're collecting.
They're touching and prodding. And you feel violated all over again. And then with the questioning, you having to relive this moment over and over. And it's not a one-time thing. You're going to get questioned more than once.
Right.
So that's putting that victim through a lot.
The detectives are going to question you. Probably another one, and then the doctors, the nurses. I mean, all of this, you're going through all of this, and then you get home, and someone who's supposed to love you says, what were you wearing?
Where were